They were in Harlem shooting the scenes, and like the neighbors had their windows open in the projects, and you could just hear all these women saying, "I love you, Denzel."
Have you ever crashed a set?
I've crashed a lot of film sets. That used to be my MO. That was the thing that I did very earlier on in my career. I haven't done that in a long time. I usually get invited now to set. Um, there was uh, there was one particular time that I want to share about where this was again very early in my career when I was just starting. I was very green in business, and I just wanted to make things happen. So what I would do is look at there are websites where you could find where a film is shooting, the street, the days they're shooting, maybe the project. They'll make up a different name for it, and they'll change the name of the actors that are in it, or they'll just have their character name, just to be discreet. But I would do a ton of research and figure it out and just pop up, just pop up. And if there was someone I wanted to work with or get in front of, I had like a plan of how I wanted to talk to them, what I wanted to say. I'd say that a lot of the times it did work. It was successful. There was this time where a friend of mine that lived in Staten Island, she was not in the business, but she was in entertainment and loved the arts, and she knew that I would crash film sets. And this friend of mine in Staten Island, she went on to tell me like, hey, they're shooting this movie, in Staten Island, and James was writing and directing it. And it must have been like 10, 11 o'clock at night. And I called my ex-business partner. I said, I found out this information. And he's like, I'm available. I said, let's go. So we drove from Long Island to Staten Island over the Verrazano Bridge. We got to the film set, and it wasn't a huge set, but it was a decent sized set. And we just kind of blended in and just waited for them to wrap. We were just being respectful. And back then, James was always known for wearing a suit, and tie. When he directed, it was funny. That was his thing. So at the end, when they wrapped, we approached James, and I introduced myself and told him how much we, loved his work and, the stuff they'd written before, and that we wanted to build a relationship with him, and if we could get his contact information. And he shared his phone number and email, which was really freaking cool. And then what happened later on is that I had produced a short that we took to the short film corner at the Cannes Film Festival. And we had told James that we were going, and he said, hey guys, well, you should meet with my producing partner, this guy named Sebastian. And Sebastian works with him a lot. And he said that Sebastian had like 3 films in competition, which it's hard to get 1 film in competition, but Sebastian had 3. Sebastian is French. So we met with Sebastian at some fancy hotel in Cannes. I don't remember the name of it, but I remember like it was yesterday. It was just a great highlight of my career, just remembering it. Like, it was bright, it was a beautiful hotel, and Sebastian is telling us about his movies, and then working with James and telling us about some little movie they did. Michael Bay put his name on it, and Universal will get behind it because of Michael Bay, and Ethan Hawke is in it. And then it's a little movie, they'll see how it does. And at the end of the whole thing, he said that, well, there's an after party for one of my films tonight. Here's 2 tickets. Love for you 2 to come. And they were like these golden tickets. Like, I imagine these like old tickets from the 1600s or whatever, 1700s. And they were like golden tickets and had the name of the venue, all these things. And this was kind of ballsy of me to do, but at the time we had this intern named Cassandra, and she spoke every language under the sun, and she came out there with us. And it was very interesting because when we were planning to go to Cannes, we were looking at where to stay, and she was like, we never really knew her deal. But she said, yeah, well, since you guys are going to go to Cannes, I have a house out there. And we're like, wait, you have a house in Cannes? It's right outside of Cannes. It's in Du Cap, which is a very fancy area. And she ended up living in like a mansion, which is ridiculous. So we stayed with our intern in her, mansion. I mean, her family owns it, so it's not really her house, but she has a boat and all these things. And we learned all these things about Cassandra, and she took very good care of us and drove us to all of our meetings and things at Cannes. So I asked Sebastian and said, listen, I know you have two. You're probably limited with what you can give, but Cassandra's here with us. She's a really good person. She's kind and she's appropriate. And we are staying with her. And I don't want her to just be at home when we're at this thing or drop us off. And is there any way you could spare an extra ticket? And he looked at me and then he took the phone, made a phone call, and I used to speak fluent French. I don't speak fluent French, but he spoke something in French, hung up the phone, and he went back in his pocket and gave us a third ticket. So Cassandra was able to attend with us, and it was my first, time at Cannes this time around. And it was everybody that was an A-lister was at this thing, LFMAO. I don't know how you say it. They were there. I think the Smurfs was coming out, the producer of the Smurfs. And the venue was like this castle on a mountain. And there was a long line to get into this thing. With our golden tickets, we skipped the line, walked straight in. And it was one of the best nights that I had in Cannes, And I've been to Cannes. That was my first time to Cannes. I'd gone one other time after. But yeah, it was just amazing. And Sebastian was a pipeline, for us. And then we ended up selling that short film to Sorts International. And till this day, I still get a residual check every like 6 months to a year. It's not a lot of money, but a few $100. We've made decent money on that short. It was sold worldwide. And about a year later, NBA Finals. That film, that little movie that Sebastian and James DeMonaco were talking about was called The Purge, and it changed James's life. And I called up James. I'm like, James, I want to rock with you. Like, how can I get involved with you and do more? And he's like, listen, Ramfis, there's not much I can do. I'm a writer-director, but, if you ever need any support, call my agent. And I developed a relationship there, and the assistant, this guy named Michael, he was a great, assistant. He now is an agent at the Verve Talent Agency, and we've become, friends. And anytime I need something at Verve, I could go to him, And that all started because I took the risk to, go out, to Staten Island to meet this guy. So that's probably the most successful, story. In terms of that. And there's been many other times where I've just popped up on sets and it hasn't worked. I was an extra on American Gangster, and that was when I first started acting, and it was the first big movie I did extra work on, and it was just amazing to see Ridley Scott work and all the talent. Like, just everybody was in that movie. Idris Elba and Denzel and Russell and T.I. It was an incredible experience. And the day that I was there, there was no way. There was an opportunity for me to get in front of Denzel. And the reality of it is that everybody wants to talk to Denzel. I just remember when they were in Harlem shooting the scenes, and like the neighbors had their windows open in the projects, and you could just hear all these women saying, "I love you, Denzel." It was just so classic. It was like, oh my God. I felt like I was in Training Day watching that scene where, he's in the projects and everybody in the hood is like a blood gang member. That's what it felt like, And it was just wild just being there, and everybody just like went to go ask for an autograph or take a picture. And that wasn't my goal or intention. And I wanted to speak to him. I'll tell you why in a second. So I said, let me go talk to Ridley Scott. So I went up to Ridley Scott. There weren't as many people lined up for him. There were people lined up for him, but not compared to Denzel. And I just complimented him on his work, what he's done. Very familiar with all his work and his accomplishments. Not that he cares that I'm, me, the extra, is complimenting him. He probably doesn't care. But, I just was genuine with it. And I was very ballsy with what I said. I said, listen, I want to work with you. how can that, and this is when I was, just acting. I wasn't really thinking about producing as much, I just thought about it a little bit, but I was just telling him that, and I guess inappropriate to tell him that, and what happened next was that I'd asked him for his phone number. I said, listen, I want to give you a call. Let's sit down, take you to lunch. And, and I doesn't quite work that way. And his first AD was there in time to save him and get him out. And he said, no, contact me. And that meeting with Ridley Scott never happened, what I ended up doing, again, which was really ballsy, this is before WME was formed. There was William Morris Agency and Endeavor. I called his office and I said, met Ridley, we hit it off well, and I want to work with him, so how do we get started? Something along like that. I got the assistant, and I guess the assistant knew, like, this is not going to work, and I'd sent my headshot and resume and my black and white that I just got made, and I followed up, and after I submitted and checked in, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to work with Ridley, and the guy at the time, he just said, no, it's not going to work, and I realized I wasn't going to get through. This is not going to work. So I changed my strategy, and I said, hey, you are going to be an agent one day. You know what I'm trying to do. Let's build a relationship. And then that's what happened. Me and the assistant developed a relationship. I came out to LA, and then we went to some sushi restaurant that people used to love going to. I can't remember the name of it, but we had like this really nice dinner. It was somewhere in West Hollywood. And I developed a relationship with this guy that was on his way to becoming a talent agent. Unfortunately, he got caught up. It spiraled down for him, and he had to leave the industry. So it didn't quite manifest into that, but I believe I accomplished my goal, and it was a good friendship that me and this gentleman had created. And now back to Denzel. I did want to get in front of Denzel. The reason was that I heard he was getting ready to direct, and I wanted to work with him. He was on his way to do this movie called The Great Debaters, and I wanted an opportunity to at least audition and be in the film. So there was a day that I was not scheduled to be on set, and I found out where they were going to be shooting. I crashed the set, and I blended in, and there's a smart way to do it where people are not going to kick you off set. That's what I figured, just reading the temperature of the set and the body language, and you're not doing anything inappropriate. So I just kind of just like walked around, and then at some point, Denzel walked out of this restaurant or whatever. He was completely by himself. Like, oh my God, this is my moment. So I took that moment, went up to him. I said, Denzel. He turned around, and I introduced myself. I spoke with him, and then someone turned around, because there's always eyes on him. He's A-list talent. Someone realized that, wait a second, I'm not supposed to be there. I'm speaking to him. No, 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 no. And they ran over and interrupted, and said that he had to go, and then I had to leave, and there was someone else that I got to know on set there, and he came up to me and he said, listen, what you did was like, it's not appropriate, and it's probably good if you leave. And he's like, I had the option, not that I had the option to leave or not to leave, but I just thought, like, what's the highest good here? I can stay and try to do this again, but now, it kind of squandered my plans. So I didn't think it would be smart if I did stay and try to get in front of him again, because of just the way the interaction went. So I ultimately decided just to leave, But it's funny because I ended up developing a really good relationship with Denzel Whitaker, who got the role that I wanted. And we actually worked on this project with David Oyelowo 2 years ago. And it kind of just came back full circle, like Denzel Whitaker and I have become like the dearest of friends, and, we're homies. But even though it didn't work out, I'm glad that I took that shot, because I live in a place of, I don't want to be in a coulda, woulda, should've. I know that I tried, And I'm happy with what I at least did. I know that it just didn't work out. It wasn't in, I guess, my best for it to work out or the project's best. And I'm happy that Denzel Whitaker took that role, because after that, he became who he is now.
I like your stories. What have you thought of working with a screenwriter? Like, if you had one about just the whole thing you talked about with Cassandra. You have this intern. She speaks all these languages. You're thinking, great, we've got these 2 golden tickets to Cannes, and then you find out she's got this family man. I mean, that's like its own movie right there.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
can't make it up.
driving around 2 eager producers like in France. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
There's no way
you
I would
kind of
have driven around in France because the Vespas, like the way they drive the Vespas, I feel like I would have hit one of these guys. And the car we rented was stick shift. And granted, I know how to drive stick shift, but I'm not great at it. And we're up these hills where if you went a little bit too far right, you'll fall over the cliff with no barrier. I was extremely terrified to drive in Italy the way that they drive. And not Italy, I'm sorry, France. We went to Italy after. We flew into Milan, got the car from Milan, and drove to, Cannes, Cap Ferret. And so there's no way I would have done that. I don't feel comfortable driving out there the way that they drive, especially a stick shift vehicle.
on
So,
hills. Yeah.
so yeah, Cassandra was so clutch and so meaningful to that trip that we had, my first time at Cannes.